The night air snapped with desert cold as Lindy Chamberlain jolted awake, her heart hammering before her mind even knew why. A single cry, sharp, fragile, almost questioning, pierced the darkness of the Ayers Rock campground. It was Azaria's cry. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. A mother knows the difference between a whimper and a warning. This was the latter. Something was wrong. It's terribly wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from. I love knowing who is listening. For a heartbeat, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. The canvas of the tent fluttered as if something had brushed against it. The wind? An animal? No. Lindy didn't wait to reason it out. She tore open the zipper with trembling hands, calling her baby's name even as dread coiled in her stomach. The cot was empty. The blankets were tossed aside. And in the sand outside, illuminated by the brief sweep of a flashlight, she saw paw prints. Leading away from camp, a murmur swept through the other campers, half fear, half disbelief. Someone whispered, "A dingo." Another answered, "Impossible." But Lindy knew what she saw. She knew what she heard. And as she ran barefoot over the cold desert ground, every grain of sand felt like it was cutting into her resolve. Her thoughts spiraled. "Hold on, Azaria. I'm coming. Please, I'm coming." The search began immediately. Flashlights cut across the red earth like desperate stars scraping the ground. Men and women fanned out, calling the child's name, their voices trembling between hope and terror. In the distance, dingoes yipped into the night, their calls echoing like cruel reminders. The desert was too vast, too silent, too indifferent. But as the night deepened, suspicion crept in like a slow-moving storm. First as questions, then as whispers, then as accusations. Someone said Lindy's voice had been too calm. Another claimed her story sounded rehearsed. Fear twisted into doubt. Doubt soured into blame. And by morning, the narrative had shifted from tragedy to crime. Lindy felt the shift. She felt it in the way people looked at her, not with empathy, but with calculation. She felt it in the investigators' questions, sharpened like knives beneath soft words. She sat in the interview room, palms pressed together, trying to steady her breath. She replayed every second of the night, every sound, every movement, as though clarity might save her. But she didn't know that sometimes the truth isn't enough. Sometimes people trust certainty more than honesty. The trial that followed was a spectacle, a nation divided. Mother dissected under fluorescent lights and public judgment. Prosecutors painted her as cold, emotionless, capable of unthinkable things. They twisted her words until they lost their shape. They questioned the tears she shed and the ones she didn't. And in the middle of it all sat Lindy, gripping the edge of her chair, wondering how grief had turned into a cage. The moral tension was suffocating. The public wanted someone to blame. The system needed a narrative that made sense. And a dingo stealing a baby did not fit neatly into the comforting boxes of human certainty. A mother harming her child? Tragic but familiar. Understandable in its darkness. And so the verdict was shaped before the evidence was even weighed. When the jury pronounced Lindy guilty, the courtroom fell into a haunting stillness. A single gasp broke the silence, her husband, Michael, a sound so raw it seemed to hang in the air long after it ended. Lindy closed her eyes. She thought she'd never see freedom again. She thought she'd never see justice again. She was wrong, because truth has a strange way of resurfacing. Years passed. Lindy endured prison with a quiet strength, holding on to her innocence like a lifeline. And then came the discovery. A piece of Azaria's clothing found near a dingo den. Torn, weathered, but indisputable. It was the proof no one wanted to believe. Yet proof does not ask permission. It simply exists. The nation that once condemned her gasped again, this time in shame. Investigators reopened the case. Experts re-examined evidence. And slowly, like a tide reversing course, the story shifted back toward the light. In a courtroom filled with tense anticipation, the truth was finally spoken aloud. The child had been taken by a dingo. Lindy was innocent. The release felt like a quiet sunrise. Not loud, not triumphant, but deeply human. As she stepped out of prison, a small crowd gathered. No gears, no accusations. Just people standing in humbled silence. One woman stepped forward, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "I'm sorry." Lindy didn't answer out of anger. She answered out of grace, "Thank you." In that moment, the world didn't feel quite so cruel. Because justice doesn't vanish, it waits, and it finds its way back. And as the desert wind moves across Ayers Rock, carrying echoes of both grief and resilience, one truth lingers in the red dust. A mother's love is stronger than rumor, stronger than fear, stronger than the shadows cast by doubt. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed to Whispered Words for more powerful stories like this one. Your voice helps keep these truths alive, and your support means the world. Don't just watch, be part of the story.